Okay. Should I say something about
The hand.
brochures? Okay. Okay. All right, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Isiaya Tidsda Tessa, Tulal Chud Dulelap. My name is Tessa Campbell, and I'm the senior curator at the Hibulb Cultural Center Natural History Preserve.
And I'm Kaila Cogdill. I am the assistant curator at the Hibulb Cultural Center Natural History Preserve, and thank you very much for coming to our presentation.
And I just want to mention real quick for all the shy people in the back that we have some handbooks and sample materials in the rows up front. So at the end of the presentation, you can just come up and grab those materials. So our central question is, how do you process a significant and large archival collection? It is a very overwhelming feeling when you have an archival collection enter your facility, no matter the size. It is even more of a daunting feeling when you do not have any previous training, which is what Kaila and I experienced when we had to process this collection that we're going to discuss today. It is even more overwhelming when it enters your facility unexpectedly. And prior to the arrival of this collection that we're going to discuss today, our facility did not have an archival processing lab in place, a designated archival storage space, any intake procedures, or we didn't even have any archival supplies on hand. We simply had to build our archival lab, along with learning how to process this collection from the ground up. So before we begin our presentation, I'll just give a quick introduction to who the Tulalip tribes are. We are located in the state of Washington. We are 30 miles north of the city of Seattle and 60 miles south of the Canadian border. And circa today, we have an estimated 4,300 enrolled tribal members. So this is a photograph of the exterior of our museum facility. We had our grand opening to the public in August of 2011, and it was a 30-year dream for our people to open a museum. Here's a quick overview of our facility. Overall, it's 25,000 square feet. It has a main exhibit, temporary exhibit space, 2 classrooms open to the public, a longhouse, a canoe hall, a research library, and a gift shop. Adjacent to our main museum building, we have our collection facility, and it consists of a 9,000 square foot collection room. Ethnographic collections, we have an archival lab now, and we are certified archaeological repository. So we attribute this collection we are going to discuss today to Chief William Shelton, shown here on the slide. And Chief William Shelton was born in 1868 on Sandy Point, Whidbey Island in the state of Washington. So he was being trained to be an Indian doctor by his parents. But when he was 17, he learned about the nearby Indian mission school from one of his cousins. Shelton was extremely fascinated when he learned about reading and writing because our people did not have a written language. With his desire to learn English and to read and write, Shelton ran away from home and enrolled himself in the Indian mission school in 1885. Because he learned to read and write, he documented much of the tribe's early history. He maintained a diary, which he wrote in almost daily between the years 1905 and the late 1930s. He recorded all of the births, deaths, marriages, crimes, and important historical dates of the reservation. He wrote a letter to the government asking permission to build a longhouse. And this was after our longhouses had been destroyed by Indian agents. And it was also during a time when it was illegal for our people to carry their rites of passage. And he was granted permission to build the longhouse by the government. He also published a book in 1923 titled The Story of Totem Poles or Indian Legends. He also opened a museum in 1928 furnished with teepees and artifacts. So I'll give an example of some personal history on this collection. My grandmother was born in the early 1900s, and she never knew her birth date because it was never documented. And while I was searching through this collection, I was reading through some of his ledgers, and I saw an entry by Chief William Shelton that he wrote down the date of my grandmother's birth date. And she always thought she was born on October 13th, and she said it was either between the years 1913 to 1917. That's a lot of years to pick a year, so she chose a year that made her the youngest. But it was very touching to see that her birth date was actually October 12th, 1917. So here are some photos of Shelton's carvings. He was a renowned carver, and many of his poles traveled all throughout the United States. The pole on the left is still standing today in Ulster Park, Pennsylvania. The next pole was taken down in 2010. It stood on the Washington State Capitol grounds in Olympia and was gifted back to Tulalip just a few months ago. And poles traveled to other places like Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. So now to introduce how we acquired the collection. In 2012, we are invited by Chief William Shelton's grandson to extract many materials and artifacts from his property, and involved much of the staff of the Hibulb Cultural Center, the Tribal Construction Department, Forestry Department, Maintenance Department, and Waste Management. The materials in the home consisted of 5 generations of materials that began with William Shelton. So the team carefully weeded through his home, extracting the important documents and artifacts. It took several truckloads back and forth between his home and the museum. It was by far the largest donation of any material that our museum had ever received. And for this project, we needed boxes, folders, plastic sheeting, plastic bags, face masks, gloves, several trucks, and a first aid kit. So here's a quick overview of the collection, what we received, many historical photographs, audio recordings of family songs and stories, books, the diaries of Chief William Shelton and other family members, audio reel tapes, vinyl records, newspaper clippings, business cards, original records of tribal meetings and minutes, tribal newspapers and publications from other tribes, early boarding school documents, correspondence with government officials, and scrapbooks. So the collection was not stored in the most favorable conditions over the years. It had pretty much been in the original condition over the last 100 years, hadn't been touched. So the collection was exposed to rodent infestation. There was a lot of insect infestation, lots of dust and molds, and they were exposed to other agents of deterioration, which I will discuss next. So here's an example. This slide depicts agents of deterioration that can impact your collection. They can cause significant damage over time, and it's always important to mitigate against these risks in order to prolong the life of your collections. And the Canadian Conservation Institute website states, the agents of deterioration identify 10 primary threats specific to heritage environment and encourage their prevention at the collections level first by avoiding, blocking, and detecting possible damage, and then by responding and treating damage.
So you each should have received a copy of the how-to guide. Again, this guide is also available online via the ATALM website. And the Sustainable Heritage Network that is recording our session today will also be posting our handbook along with the presentation slides on its website. So as part of the duties of the curatorial department at the Hibulb Cultural Center, our project was to rehouse the William Shelton family collection, photographs and documents in proper archival storage. And museum staff, not being trained archivists, performed a self-study and decided to create a how-to guide to be utilized for future collection materials. And again, I want to reiterate that we are not archivists, nor are we conservators. So the methods and materials will depend on the nature of your collection, institution's budget, and what works. Our archival training involved lots and lots of research. We spent many hours on the internet trying to find tips as well as helpful resources on how to process this very large archival collection. And in your handbook, the how-to guide, we have some helpful resources that we found useful, so I'd highly recommend checking those websites out. We also lucked out in attending some local workshops in the Washington State area on how to archive documents. The Balboa Art Conservation Center, which is located in San Diego, also held a Care of Collections paper workshop that was also really beneficial to us. We also received a stipend to attend this workshop on paper conservation. And we learned how to make enclosures for framed photographs, which Tessa will be discussing later in the presentation. We also took an archival basics online course taught through the American Association of State and Local History. And this was a 3-week course that we took very early on before the processing of the William Shelton material. And this was also a really good course just to get archival basics. We also have benefited from attending previous ATALM conferences that have also held workshops on archiving documents and photographs, as well as some conservation methods. And so that's been helpful as well. In June of 2015, we attended the Native American Museum Studies Institute, also known as NAMSI, in Berkeley, California. And this is just a picture of the NAMSI participants from 2015. And what's nice about this institute is that they give stipends to tribal museums. And so Tessa and I were lucky enough to receive a tribal stipend, or a stipend to attend this institute in June. And some of the things that were covered at this particular institute included issues such as NAGPRA, fundraising, tribal partnerships, and collections management, with the highlight being a tour of the Phoebe Hearst Museum of Anthropology, where we got to see how they house their collections. In addition, we've also benefited from touring archival facilities in Washington State, one being a tour of Western Washington University's Archival Records Center. And for anybody that finds themselves in Washington State, I would highly recommend a tour of this facility. It is quite impressive. We've also benefited from help with volunteers. Richard Hanks has his PhD in Native American Studies. He also ran an archival lab. And so he's been very helpful to both Tessa and myself regarding how to process the documents as well as labeling the documents. Sharon Bauscher is a longtime volunteer at the Hibulb Cultural Center, and she's also been helping us label boxes and documents as well. Daniel Hong is a master's student in psychology, and he did a brief internship at the Hibulb Cultural Center, and he also helped us in the archival lab processing documents. Sarah Balinson is now a collections manager at a museum in Prineville, Oregon, and she also helped us with the processing of documents as well. We've also benefited from the help of Hibulb Cultural Center staff, who've also helped us label documents, and put photographs in the archival sleeves. We had a Tulalip summer youth worker named Heather. She's 14 years old. She had never worked at a tribal museum before, and she came in this summer for a few months and just loved working with us in the archival lab and collections facility. And so hopefully in the fall, once she starts school, she'll be volunteering her time at the archival center. So this session will cover helpful resources, and again, please see the handbook, practical methodologies used, materials used, and other issues of key importance when you're processing collections. And what we hope that you'll take away from this session is that each participant, again, will receive a copy of the Hibulb Cultural Center's How-To Archival Handbook, as well as a box of archival material samples. So you each should have received a box, and it has archival material samples, and we will be going over each one of these in the presentation. We will also be going over examples of proper archival material. So some archival companies that we've used include Gaylord Archival, Talus, University Product, Hollinger Metal Edge, and MasterPack USA. So some basic do's and don'ts, and again, this is covered in the handbook. There's absolutely no food, gum, and beverages, including water, in the lab and collections area. And you need to work on a clean, flat, dry, and debris-free surface. And it's important to use pencils to mark and label any documents. Other do's and don'ts include never placing photographs and objects directly on the floor or near the sink. And all materials should be handled with gloves. And we try to avoid touching the photographs and slides with bare hands. So it's important to change the gloves when the gloves become dirty. And these are some laboratory tools that you would find in our archival lab at the Hibulb Cultural Center. To the left, there are brushes for lightly dusting off debris, a dust blower for archival material, staple removers, and again, I'll go over the one that we recommend shortly, tweezers, pencils, and scissors. In addition, we like to use what are known as nitrile gloves for our photographs and documents, as well as a respirator. Again, as Tessa had mentioned earlier, the collection was not in favorable conditions, so we've used a respirator to protect ourselves from mold, dust, and rat feces. The picture to your left is just the different types of storage enclosures that you can use for your photographs as well as documents. And the acid-free tissue paper that we tend to use for some of our collection materials. And again, we'll go over what we've been using this for.
So the first step we take when the materials entered the museum facility is we did what is a low temperature treatment. And this is to kill off any insect activity that may be inside the documents, any molds. Also, as Kaila mentioned, they're exposed to rat and mice feces, so we want to make sure we eradicate any of that. And what we do is use these polyethylene bags. And when you put them in the freezer, you want to make sure they're completely sealed off. So these bags are nice because the archival boxes fit in them nicely and that they also completely seal off. So you want to make sure the materials are quarantined in the bag. And then we put the materials on the cart, which you see on the photograph on the right, and then we push the cart into the freezer and let the items remain in there for 1 week. And the temperatures should be set to -18 to -20 degrees Celsius. And after that 1 week, we pull the cart out and let the materials acclimate for 48 hours. And during the acclimation period, you want to make sure you do not open the bags because any condensation inside the bags could cause mold growth on the materials. And then after the 48-hour period, you push the cart back into the freezer and freeze for an additional week. This is to ensure any pests that may still be living are eradicated completely. And after that 1 week period, pull them out of the freezer and let them acclimate for another 48 hours. And then you can open the bags and do any sorting or cleaning of the materials. So when you begin sorting through your documents, you want to make sure you look for any type of metal fasteners, such as paper clips or staples. You want to remove these because they corrode over time. And you can see in the photograph on the left, there's a shiny new paper clip, and then the ones on the left have some corrosion, the darkened material. And Kaila and I fasten all of our documents with these plastic clips, and there are samples of these in your takeaways. And the reason I'll show you is remove metal fasteners. As you can see, they leave permanent stains on the documents. So the photographs on the left, we pulled out some staples that had some signs of corrosion, and you can see the darkening, and then the staple here.
So to continue the discussion about the staple remover process, this is just a picture of what's called a flat staple remover, and we recommend this. We found it highly effective in removing staples, and you can purchase these at any office supply store. So for the first step, you want to lift up the staple prongs as depicted on the picture to the left, and then to the picture to the right, you want to remove the staple. So when working with family photographs and albums, there are bound to be photographs of different sizes and types. This particular collection included black and white photographs, color photographs, slides, lantern slides, copper plates, glass negatives, and negatives. And these are just before and after pictures of the negatives. Again, the negatives were not stored in favorable conditions. The film should be housed in proper archival storage. And Gaylord Archival sells boxes and sleeves that are used for negative storage. And I can pass around some samples. This one actually is in your mini document case, is the polypropylene self-locking negative sleeve from Gaylord Archival. This also is the Gaylord Archival negative strip envelopes, and I'll go ahead and pass these around. We also had copper plates in our collection. I would say there are about 10 to 12. The copper plate, again, it's the image that's engraved on the copper. This particular one was dated in the 1890s, and the images are from the early boarding school at Tulalip. This particular image is of the Tulalip boarding school students. And the state that the copper plates were in, the copper was stored face down, and they were stacked on top of each other. The copper side needs to be face up when stored, and the plate should never be stacked on top of each other. So we used a Gaylord blue barrier archival box, and we also wrapped the plates in acid-free tissue paper, as you can see on the photograph to the right-hand side. We also had numerous photographs, black and white as well as color photographs, from the 1890s to the early 2000s. And again, these photographs were also not housed in the most favorable conditions. They were stored with other documents. They were stored in between newspapers. as well as artifacts. And so we felt it would be important to separate the photographs out. So the photographs came in a variety of sizes. So we decided to house these in the polyester plastic archival quality sleeves. And again, these sleeves come in many different sizes. The sleeves can be purchased at Gaylord Archival, Talus, Hollinger Metal Edge, as well as other archival supply companies. We also use the bag stiffeners that Gaylord Archival carries, and these come in a 100-pack. And these should also be in your mini document case. And we use these to separate the photos out, as well as to ensure that the photographs stand upright, as was recommended to us by an archivist. For the larger photographs, we place these in print folders, also sold by Gaylord Archival, and utilize the Gaylord Archival blue-gray barrier board deep front lid archival box. As you can see in the picture depicted to the right, these boxes come in many different sizes, which is very helpful when you're dealing with photographs that come in many different sizes. The glass negatives, again, these have been dated to the 1890s. We house these in Hollinger Metal Edge negative storage boxes. And the boxes come in 4x5, 5x7, and 8x10 glass negatives. And we use the Hollinger Metal Edge Tyvek envelopes to store the glass negatives. And I can pass around a sample of the envelope that we used. The glass lantern slides, these are also known as magic lantern slides with its origins in the 17th century. The collection that the Hibulb Cultural Center has have been dated to the early 1900s and are of early Tulalip. Gaylord and Hollinger Metal Edge carry glass lantern slide products. And so we use the 4-flap envelopes that was recommended to us by an archivist. And I have a sample of these 4-flap envelopes. As you can see on the picture depicted to the left-hand side. And these envelopes are constructed so they can compensate for the thickness of an object. And here's a sample. We also stored the glass negatives in the glass lantern storage box. And what's nice about Hollinger Metal Edge is that the envelopes are constructed specifically for these types of boxes so that they can fit and you don't have to cut or alter the sleeves in any way to get them to fit into the box. The stenographs, we had about 10 to 15 stenographs, and they're from the early 1900s to 1934. And this is a picture where Tessa had mentioned earlier about her grandmother's birth date. And this is the actual picture where she found out her grandmother's exact birth date and other family history pertaining to her great-grandfather. These stenographs belong to Chief William Shelton. Tessa had mentioned earlier that William Shelton was also a police chief. And so he used the stenographs to document legal information. So for the stenographs, we used acid-free tissue paper to wrap each stenograph and then house them horizontally in a Gaylord Archival rectangular storage box with protective padding on the sides, as you can see depicted in this picture.
What kind of padding is it?
Let's see.
Oh, it's, I think it's a Valora padding, and it comes already in the box, so you don't have to insert it. It's a pre-made box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we had several audio recordings of oral histories, traditional songs, and language, and so it was very important for us to also preserve this. So we purchased an audio cassette box from Gaylord Archival, as well as single audio cassette cases, which I have right here. And again, I'll pass this around.
Are you digitizing these? No, we plan to.
Mm-hmm.
Those things have tape, have a shelf life,
Yeah.
They do, yeah.
and how long will these protect them?
They're archival quality, so they were recommended that we put them in the store for storage. I don't know how long they'll protect them, just because there is a storage, a shelf life for cassette tapes, so it doesn't really matter. But for now, at least they're being protected, rather than just, not putting them in protective.
Are you digitizing them?
We hope so.
Yeah, we are going to work with our language department, and they're going to come and digitize all the audio reel and cassette tapes.
Okay. So in addition to the cassette tapes, we also had audio reel tapes. And so we used an audio reel box for the storage. And again, Gaylord Archival sells different sizes for these audio reels. So we were very fortunate to find a size that worked with this particular one. Gaylord Archival also sells black clamshell archival rare book boxes that fit special sized books, albums, and diaries. And William Shelton also had an extensive collection of diaries. I actually transcribed one of his diaries from 1905 to 1910, and he literally wrote in his diary every single day, just on the daily happenings of what he did. And so that's really important. I think we would eventually like to transcribe all the diaries.
So in the photo on the left, that's how a typical box looked like when they came into our museum, just a hodgepodge of various materials in one box. And on the photograph on the right is the lab we quickly had to create. And so documents come in a variety of different sizes and material types. Some examples of the documents that we encountered are standard documents, legal size, maps, and documents made from vellum. The earliest document that we received dates back to 1855, and this is where the government granted a tribal member to be a chief of the Snohomish tribe. The significant documents include the early Tulalip boarding school, correspondence between Chief Shelton and the federal government, documents from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and correspondence regarding the history of Chief William Shelton's story poles. And our system for sorting through these included searching through one box at a time, reading each one, remembering to remove any metal fasteners, giving the documents a cleaning, and then filing them to be sorted later. And so this sorting through, we had 75 boxes. We just finished sorting through the last box 2 months ago. It took about 3 years to sort through each box. So this photo shows how our table looked on a typical day. And so we ended up sorting by subject and then inserting materials into sleeves and transferring them to their next station, which I'll show you in the next slide. When they came in, as I mentioned, they weren't in any order. There was a material of different variety of materials, photos mixed with paper in each box. Each item had to be carefully regarded and sorted. So our system in the beginning is we sorted by subject. So we had to read each document. And so we had these trays, several trays, and then we learned that we should be sorting by a series instead of individual subjects. So, for example, in the beginning, I was doing general correspondence for every family member, but the archivists taught us that we should be sorting each individual in their own section. So it was a very big learning process for us. And you have to remember that documents will be sorted and sorted again. So when we sort through the items, we make sure to keep items together. For example, many people wrote to Chief William Shelton and included photographs. So when we house these, we keep them together in order to keep their original context. So we put the document in a sleeve, and then we attach the photograph with one of the plastic clips, and then attach the envelope as well, and then put it in one of these acid-free folders to keep everything together. For the document storage, we've been putting them into polyester envelopes. These help protect the documents, and these sleeves are very expensive, so we can't afford to put every single document into a sleeve. And so the judgment of which document ends up in a sleeve is based on the judgment of the Hibulb Cultural Center staff, and it's based on historical significance or value. So after we sort all the documents and after they're in their trays, we transfer them into these document storage boxes. These come in a variety of sizes and legal sizes as well. And these are sold through many different archival suppliers. Gaylord, Tallis, University Products all sell them. And when you put folders in them, you want to make sure you don't overstuff them. This can cause damage to the documents, and also the lid won't close very well if they're too full. The grandson of Chief William Shelton kept spiral notebook journals. He wrote in his journal on a daily basis. Must have been a learned trait from his grandfather. So we put these in order by year, and then we put them, these are called stereo boxes, and they are available through Gaylord Archival. You'll notice that it's slanted in the front, and this allows for easy perusing. And then we put the dividers, the bag stiffeners. These are available through Gaylord Archival. In the photograph, you'll see the metal spiral rings. It's recommended to remove the paper from the spiral rings because they can corrode over time because they're metal. So in the donation that we received 3 of Chief William Shelton's wallets. Oh, yeah.
Are you indexing and cataloging as you're sorting?
We have done some a lot of scanning and some cataloging, but it's so overwhelming. It's going to be a 10-year project probably. Chief William Shelton had a few wallets, and since he was such a popular man, he had lots of business cards in his wallet. And so to store these, we purchased, these are 3 mil, 2.5 by 4.5 self-locking print sleeves. And these are in your takeaway gifts. But these don't fit in the document mini cases, which are also in your gift. So we had to trim them down, and then they fit the business cards really nicely. So newspapers, there's 2 methods that you can do for storing or filing them. The method we chose to do is to photocopy the original and discard the original. We do this because nightmares are kind of a nightmare. They're highly acidic. They decompose over time. And a lot of them are available online now. But if you do decide to maintain the newspapers and keep them within your collection, there's a photograph of a newspaper preservation kit on the photograph on the right. And these are available through Gaylord Archival. And since newspapers are really acidic, there's a bottle of the de-acidification spray. You want to make sure you spray the newspapers, and then you put them in the large print folders, and then there's interleaving tissue. And these all come in the kit, except for the preservation spray. The little bottle there, it's just a little 12-ounce bottle. It costs about $35. So that's another reason we decide not to keep the newspapers. It's just really expensive to maintain. We did have a few pieces of artwork, and for this we create custom boxes, and we use the corrugated board, and these are they're samples in your takeaway. And it's once you learn how to make a box, it's fairly easy. Hopefully there'll be more workshops on this, on how to make boxes. For our books, we purchased these book storage trays. They're fairly economical. They run about $5 a piece. They're available through Gaylord Archival. And these are great because you don't want to stack your books on top of each other or try to lean them in a bookshelf, because if they fall, this could damage the spine and loosen the pages. For our postcards, we purchased a kit called Carte de Visite. This is sold through Gaylord Archival. And they sell these custom postcard sleeves, which are great. And we separate similarly to the photographs and use the bag stiffeners to separate each one. Photo albums, there are two methods. These are the magnetic photo albums, and these I consider a nightmare because they do what they're supposed to do and hold the photographs in, and you can't remove them. But one method is to photocopy each page to document their original order and then remove the photographs. The reason why we are taking out the photographs is because the photo albums have signs of pest infestation. They're exposed to rat feces, and there's rat urine stains on them, so we don't want to keep those. The other option, of course, is if your photo album is in good condition, you can simply keep it in its original order. And for scrapbooks, it's a similar method to photo albums. If you decide to disassemble it for whatever particular reason, you photocopy each page and disassemble. We are going to retain the order of our scrapbooks, but you want to use interleaving tissue between each page, because the newspaper is highly acidic, and some of the pages you can see yellowing because of the acids from the newspaper transferring to other pages. So just make sure you put tissue as a barrier between each page, and then you can house it in an archival storage box. For framed photographs, we disassembled them and created a custom box. And we put the frame in one of these plastic bags. And then you see in the back, we created a custom mounting system. And we did this with the blue corrugated board. And so you take a piece of the blue board and score it in the middle, so you have a protective cover for the mat and photograph. And we created these mounting system. And the nice thing about the blue board is that you see it has like 3 layers, and you can actually tear a piece of the blue board to get a strip. And so what we did is we used the 3M archival tape, double-sided tape, and created a little slot for the photograph to sit in. But we found that the photographs, when you picked it up, would slide around. So at the bottom, we put a little slot to hold the photographs and the mat in place. Oops. Not quite. Okay, well, this actually concludes our presentation. We hope that you have found this useful for you to take back home. Because Kaila and I did not have any formal training in archives, we felt that many others out there in the same situation that we were. We felt it would be useful to share our experience, so you can all take your how-to guide to reference back home. And the presentation will be accessible online again. And just remember, when it comes to archives, there is no right way for processing them, and that the goal is to preserve them and be able to find them again.
I'd just like to thank ATALM, the Hibulb Cultural Center staff and volunteers, the Tulalip Tribes and the Tulalip Tribes TDS department, which made the guides for you. They copied them and bound them. And I'd also like to thank Washington State University Sustainable Heritage Network for recording our session. And they will also be passing out pamphlets at the end of our presentation. And thank you very much for coming. Our contact information is here, so feel free to give us a call or email us if you have any questions.
Thank you. Yes, come up and ask questions. I know.
I've been to the museum. Oh, great. Lovely. Here's me. Okay. We have a guide for media archives.
Oh,